this is where we left off on Friday. So this is Monday morning. In this video, we marked out the main walls. They're all chalked and marked in pencil, the corner junctions on the floor. You can't see it in the video, but they are there. And as previously mentioned, we've got quite a bit of a hike to carry these frames, and because it's a high wind zone, there's about 50% more timber in the wall than what there would normally be. So normal frame, we've got a single start at 600 centers. These frames, we have studs at 400 centers. So I think that's 50%. I'm not 100%. There's more wood in the wall. The walls are heavier. So, and they're not stacked in order, which is also a little bit painful. So we're having to drag a whole bunch out, lay them out as we go. And the idea really is that we want two walls that will stand together as a corner. And once we've got a corner, we can get that stood, and then we can find the walls adjacent or coming off of those. And then that one corner is going to hold up a bunch of walls. But until we get two walls that we can put up as a corner, we can't do an awful lot more other than carry the big heavy things over and just lay them on the floor. Try not to lay them in the way, so they are roughly sort of where they're going to go. And then once we get that corner set up, we can just start we can just start lifting the walls in place pretty much and just shoot them up. So we're not going to connect them to the floor at this point. We're shooting the frames together, just the plates. So we want the bottom plate to touch, and we want the top plate to touch, and we want them to be nice and flush to each other. We don't want anything hanging over or sticking out. We want those plates to be absolutely spot on. And what we'll do, we'll get everything stood and everything shot together. And once it's all together, we'll knock those frames about. I'm probably skipping ahead here a bit, but we'll knock them about a bit with a sledgehammer, get them right on our pencil marks where they want to be. We're dealing with reasonable distances, and we're trying to work to within sort of 2 mil of accuracy over, this house is about 8 by 8.5 meters, so it's not a huge house, but we want to keep that accuracy as good as we can. So we wait till everything is stood, and then we assess how close the actual frames are to what they're supposed to be. And then that enables us because nothing's fixed down, we can then shuffle the whole building about, all the walls about. We can move them independently of the floor, and we can get them really so that it has the best possible fit on the floor. You imagine if we start fixing walls down, if we stand the first two frames on that back corner that you saw, and we nail them straight down in line with the floor, if the timber's swollen, if a frame's slightly out, there's a million reasons why things aren't to the nearest millimeter. When we get to the other side of the house, it's not as big a deal on a house this size because it's not a huge house. But some houses we build, you might have a wall that's 20 odd meters or something, or 30 meters on the diagonal to the other side. And by the time you stack all these frames, if you've got a mil here, 2 mil there, by the time you get to the other side, the thing could be hanging off the floor by 15, 20 mil. And which it's not an issue. But if you could split that and you could have it hanging 5 mil over on one corner and 5 mil over on the other, and we sort of center it, you're going to get a much better job. So that's why we don't fix the frames down until we've stood everything, and then we get the best fit for the frames on the floor that we have. Morning. Trusses today. So this is what we've been up to.
So all our frames are up, everything is braced and straight and plumb, ready for trusses. There's a bit of a discrepancy at this end.
There's a different measurement on the floor plan or the foundation plan to what's on the framing plan. So
our floor doesn't quite line up with the bay window. So we'll have a bit of an email exchange, but basically we'll just end up moving the whole bay window slightly to the left, just so it's flush with the floor. So we've got some nail plates we've got to get on our corners, which we've done a couple off the scaffold, those little silver things there on the corners. So for every wall join we'll chuck one of those on. Then we'll go through and we'll mark out all our trusses along the top plate, so that we're not with our tapes constantly. We can just grab one truss, chuck it up, grab the next truss, chuck it up, and then everything will happen quite quickly. So again, just trying to think ahead, have a good process, and just make things easier for us, because the easier things are for us, cheaper it is for the client, and better job all around. So that's what we're about. So this is our truss plan. Yes, I know it's upside down, but this is the way around that the building is. So this is our building. We've got a carport out to the side. It's going to be over there, so we get some more scaffold set up for that. And these are just our markings. So we can look at those labels, shout the truss that we need, and we can chuck it straight in position without having to refer back to the plan too much. So it's all about that easy life.
So as previously explained, we're just going through and marking the locations of all of our trusses, just to keep things simple. Once everything is marked out, we'll start leaning the trusses up against the scaffold, just our main trusses at the moment, just so it doesn't get too cluttered. We'll put them roughly where they're going to go on the roof, and then we can just pull them through the scaffold and stand them straight up. Pretty much the same sort of process as standing the frames. You'll get one of your main trusses and then one of your main jack trusses. A jack truss is just a half truss, which you'll see shortly. The main truss will span corner to corner, and a jack truss will span from the outside wall to the first main truss. So once those are stood, they form a corner on the roof, and that becomes self-supporting. And then using a bit of purlin or some blocks or whatever else, you can then stand the rest of your main trusses, and that jack truss is going to brace them all up and stop them falling over. So that is the general process. You can see the trusses just being lent up now. So they're not really heavy. They're sort of, I guess, awkward given the size, but there's not actually a lot of timber in them, so it's more awkward than heavy. They're surprisingly light for the size of them, but it's always easier when they're high abbed up, which these of course have not been. So we'll start dragging them up. That's actually a girder truss. So what we're doing there, because we've got lots of jacks butting into it, if you mark the truss before standing it up, when you pull the jack up, you know exactly where the jack's going to go. So if we didn't have those markings, there'd be someone trying to balance on that truss with a tape measure, and it's it can be a real absolute nightmare a lot of the time. So now that the marking and the boring bits are done, you can see how quickly these are going up. We know exactly where they're going. We know exactly which trusses we're needing, what we're wanting next. We know where they go, so we can just grab them, chuck them on our marks, and shoot them off straight away. So it's quite a fast process. It's not complicated. As always, all we're really trying to do is make sure things are level, plumb, square, and straight. And as long as you sort of keep those in the back of your head all the time, a lot of it's sort of assembly work. I mean, it's important assembly work, because if you don't get this bit right, none of your doors work when you come to fit off, none of your skirtings will work, your windows won't open, and everything, it just becomes a nightmare. So this isn't the most accurate, it's not what people consider to be accurate work when you look at videos of finish, trim, and fit off. But I would say that this part is probably more important, because you can hide a lot of stuff with trim, but you really shouldn't have to. If you get this bit right, everything else it's so easy. But you've got to get the fundamentals right. So here our bay window has become a problem, because our otherwise complete top plate is no longer complete, because obviously there needs to be a beam or something across there to support the trusses. And because those frames aren't lining up, our beam is not really lining up, or it is, but I think we were cutting back the top plate so we can slide it across, because we've got a 90 by 90 understud on both sides, but on the one side we've got a remover stud, and then on the other side we've got to pack a bit out. I don't know if I show this in a later video or not, a bit more of a close-up, but the important thing is that we keep the bearing capacity of the beam the same on both sides. So because we're shortening up, we're going to rip one of the understuds down slightly. We need to account for that, and we need to move it. We need to move it further on, further to one side, just to accommodate that discrepancy, just so we've got even bearing on both sides of the beam. So that's what we're taking care of there.
So it's 11:15. We didn't start throwing trusses around, actually doing stuff till just after 8 o'clock. So it's not been a bad morning. Would have been a lot quicker had we been able to get the trusses slightly closer to the job. So all our main trusses are up. This is our site, this is our driveway, and then that pile over there, that's where our trusses were dropped, trusses and frames. So you've had to walk past the car, through here, round up the driveway where Justin is, everything. Yes, my daughter paints my nails, so for the comments. But so yeah, we've had to carry every one of these, but that's all the main ones are up. And they're pretty self-bracing, like it's only a small roof. And then the rest of our little bits and pieces, our jacks and our hip blades and stuff, they're all sitting there, sitting up ready to go. Time for a quick sandwich, and then we'll throw the rest of it up.
So I'll just speed this bit up a bit, because you can't really see what's going on, but I mean, you're about to see it, because it just so happens we started on the opposite side of the roof, tying our hips down in the last of the jacks, and then so we've just started getting those corner jacks up on that corner, and then we'll work our way across towards the camera, so you can sort of see what's happening there. last of the jacks go in, and then we throw our hip blade up, which is just a long bit of timber which ties everything in, and it acts as a giant brace for the roof too. So it's a really strong way to build a roof. So this is a better view. Last of our jacks going in. Hip blade goes on loosely. So we'll fix that at the top, fix that at the bottom, and then you sort of just use the jack trusses themselves to straighten it and hold it in place. So they can be a bit fiddly sometimes, but you just sort of play around with it until it's nice and straight. And then once that's in, that'll support the last couple of rafters coming off the hip. So I think the first truss is normally at 900 centers, and I think the first couple of jacks started around the 1300 mark. So your first, because you're only 400 mils from the corner usually, for your first. It's not big enough for a jack truss. It's tiny, so it's literally you've just got a little rafter there, which you can't. You can just see the top of it in the video. But if that hip blade wasn't there, there'd be nothing to nail those bits of timber into. Justin's just fixing up the beam there for the skylights over the bathrooms. There's a couple of skylights going in. They'll be directly over the bath. So even though it's a smaller home, it's still got some really cool features that we're going to pack it with. So yeah, bit of stargazing in the bath, which is always nice. So this area here, ringed by the scaffold, is going to be the carport. We're chucking the paper just along this one wall for now, because our framing's going to butt into that wall, and we've got to have paper. The paper's got to go behind the timber that's going to support our rafters, where our rafters are going to join into. There's not a great deal of detail for this on the plan, or rather the detail on the plan does not really work with the trusses that we have. So what you'll see in this video is we put the normal our bit of ribbon board across, and then I think in a later video we end up pulling it off and cutting the truss tails. But what we're trying to do here, we've got our beam, that's what's being slid onto the scaffold now. So we're going to get our beam to the right height, the right distance off the building. We'll get that propped in place. We'll set a string line up across the front of the building, which I think I got a video about that. Which is going to make sure that our rafter on the front of the carport, is going to run nice and straight with the front of our building. What we don't want is there to be a kink in that, so we'll run a big string line across. That means then we can move the beam sort of side to side before we prop it, and then we can prop it when we know that it's dead straight, dead in line with that front wall. So we're just, that's us at the right height. Now we can measure our distance out from the building, and then we'll use that string line to get to make sure that the beam is nice and straight along the front of the building. So So just grabbing our first rafter and sort of just tacking it in place for now, so we can start working out what our cut's going to look like. Because at this stage, we've worked out as far as what's on the plan isn't matching what's turned up on the truck. But obviously, what we now need to do is try and achieve a good transition from I think the main roof is 15 degrees and I think the low roof is 5 degrees or 10 degrees. They're a different pitch anyway, so where we're stood working at the moment, there's a change of pitch flashing. And what we've got to make sure is that the top roof is going to land on the bottom roof, and it's going to happen in such a way that we can flash it, we can make it waterproof without it being a big drama. But also the rafters are quite deep, and in an ideal world, the bottom of the rafter would line up with the bottom of our fascia. In this scenario, as it later turns out, this is what we tried to do round one. It didn't work because whatever we end up doing, the rafter it's simply too big. So the rafter is lower than the fascia, and we're going to have to get over that another way. But what we've done is made sure the top's mint and we can get it waterproof, which is key at the moment.
Morning. Not sure what day we are on total build, but this would be day 2 of roof framing. So we started trusses yesterday, and all the trusses are up. We've got a bit of framing just to frame our eaves, which will just be our fascia nogs, and then we'll have a ribbon board like what we've got on here, and then coming off here out to the tails of our trusses. That's not tail of our truss, that's a rafter. Those truss tails will have a piece of timber, a little sprocket, or short nog coming across, and that's what's going to hold our soffit up, what our fascia will attach to. So we've not papered. We've only papered one small part across this back wall, just because we've got rafters going against it, so the paper has to go behind the ribbon board. So we've papered this piece just so we can get the carport framed. We had a bit of a headache yesterday, well, no more than normal, it's just general head scratching, just trying to work out where that beam's going. So that beam's pretty much in location. And then, so we've started with the rafter, but this is wrong. So we're just setting up the first rafter, really just trying to get it right. What we wanted really was the bottom of that rafter in an ideal world would line up with the bottom of our fascia. I mean, from the other side. Hang on. So our level point from our ribbon board is about 5-10 mil down from the bottom of our truss tail, which is exactly where that rafter is. So that's what we've set it to, because that way when the fascia intersects in that corner, it will run down the carport all in a nice clean line without stepping. But as you can see, that means the rafter is sticking up through the top of our roof, which we can't have. So we're going to have to drop that rafter down. It's going to mean that the rafter is going to sit lower than the fascia, and we're going to have to put a little flashing or some sort of detail there just to cover in the bottom of the rafter, which isn't the end of the world. It's how it's worked out. But sometimes what's drawn on the plan And then when you start building the thing, it's not until you start building it that you can fill in the blanks of what's on the plan. So yeah, this is us filling in those blanks. So that's where we got to yesterday. Obviously it's wrong and we've got to change it, but that being wrong means that we now know, we now have a solution and we know what we're doing. So it should go quite quickly this morning. As soon as these rafters are up, we'll brace that up better than what it is, and then we can get those footing holes dug and we can suspend our posts. So the footings, we've just got a Bomac, steel galvanized Bomac bracket being cast into the concrete, and then our posts will be bolted to that. So the posts themselves aren't actually cast in, they just sit on a bracket. So yeah, we'll get a camera up just to film these rafters. We'll get the first one cut, make sure that's right, and then we'll cut the rest the same, and then we should, yeah, they'll all just nail in. And then we've got a whole bunch of brackets and boring stuff to attach just for the structure to get sign off, and then we'll do our soffit framing, so we're ready for fascia, and then we'll jump into purlin. So that's our day. So I've just spoke to our detailer, the guy who draws the frames and trusses, about a solution for our rafters butting into the building. So I'm not sure how much I explained in the last video, but this is the timber that our rafter's sitting in. On the plan it shows this timber is actually about this big, same size as our rafter. Obviously it's in the way of the truss tails, which it can't be. So talking to the designer, he's happy for us to cut these tails off because they're not really doing anything in this situation. Like I've done a couple, so we'll make them all like that for the length of the carport, and then we'll be able to get our stringer on, a bigger stringer up here to support our rafters. It's not going to alter the pitch or much else, and then we'll be able to start throwing our rafters up into our beam that we propped up yesterday. So I'll get that underway. We'll rip this piece off for the length of the carport, and we'll replace that with the wider one, and then we should be into it, building again. Good as. And in the meantime, while we were waiting to hear back from the designer, we've been round and we've done all of our truss. So we've got our little Z nails, we've got some cyclone ties. I don't know what's going on with my zoom. Where are we? There. And there's some other brackets and bits and pieces. Justin's doing all of our joist hangers on our trusses because the inspector's going to want to see all of these when he comes. We'll get the rafters. These rafters are up. We'll frame the soffits. Once the soffits are framed, that's ready for fascia, and then we'll jump onto purlin. So purlins might even be a tomorrow job at this stage. I was hoping to jump straight into rafters this morning, but it hasn't worked out. But they won't take very long. Once they're cut, now we know what we're doing, we'll be able to pre-cut them all on the ground, and they'll go up pretty quickly. And then we can brace that situation up better than what it is at the moment. That's sort of just there. Everyone makes jokes about sky hooks, but they're not real, unfortunately. Sky hooks in this situation would have been really, really useful. And because we're using cast-in brackets, the posts themselves aren't cast into the footing. It's a bracket, and the post then bolts to that. There's no real lateral support for the post. So we could dig the footings first and bolt the post to the brackets, but there's not going to be anything really supporting them anyway from falling side to side. So what we've done here, it's no real different than if we had the actual posts in the ground. And I mean, the main thing is that we don't have the posts there on back order, so yeah, there'll be a week. So next week this will be framed, we'll have fascia on, this way the job can carry on, we're not sat around waiting for posts, twiddling our thumbs, which we don't want to do. So job carries on, we'll get a roof on next week, and then we can put the posts in when they arrive. We'll get that all ready to go. So carry on.
Just getting rid of those truss tails, and then we'll pull that bit of ribbon board off, replace it with the wider stuff. So that'll make sense when you see it in a sec. And then this is all ready for rafters. So it's a bit of a pain when you're pulling stuff apart, but yeah, it's not unusual that drawings don't always match the real world. It's one of those things. Even when they do, like we've still got to figure it out. It's one thing, picture on a page, but you've got to make that into reality, and quite often there's not a lot of reference points, and obviously one's 2D, one's 3D, so quite often when you bring in that third dimension, things that work in two dimensions, they don't work in the third one. So but as mentioned, we now know what's going on, so work can carry on and pretty efficient from here. So where we took the other stuff apart, we just want to double check that accuracy. Justin's marking out the stringer, I'm pre-cutting the rafters, Justin's carrying them around and laying them out. Looks so much faster on video when you play it back. But once you know where everything is, and like we're double, triple checking everything, you see how quick these things go up. But we probably, I won't say wasted, but there's probably half a day's worth of thinking, putting things up, taking things apart, and really just trying to work out what we're doing, what it's supposed to look like. But not only that, we're trying to always think what does the finished product look like. So where we mentioned things lining up with the fascia and trying to get our heights for this and everything else, we're trying to avoid problems down the track, and we're trying to give ourselves a neater finish on the build at the end. So all these little things, if we can catch them as we go along, it means we end up with way less headaches at the end and a much better job.
Morning. It was a bit of a late finish last night because we were trying to get ready for fascia and spouting today. We sorted that out. We've done most of our truss fixings. There might be one or two things that still need to be done. And then the other main thing, we did all our wall frame fixings as well. So there's all straps and stuff to hold our lintels down and hold the frames to the floor. So we've done most of the top stuff. And then we've wrapped everything in our building paper. And then we put our ribbon board on, which will hold our sprockets for our soffites. And that's what we're going to do this morning before fascia spouting man turns up, just because it's a lot easier to do that first.
Just getting set up to do our sprockets. So basically, like with most things, you get both ends right, you put a string between them, and everything in the middle gets put to the string. So I'm setting up a string, Justin's laying out the sprockets, and then yeah, it's really just nail them on, flush to the bottom of the ribbon board, and then get them so you can see daylight between the bottom of the sprocket and the string. So the idea is you never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, want anything touching your string line. Because in truth, you don't know how much it's touching it by. If you're in the middle of a wall that's 30 meters long and you've got a bit of wood touching it, it might not be bending the line at all. It might just be brushing up against it. But it might be holding the line 10, 20 mil, pushing it out of straight by 10 or 20 mil. And if you're in the middle of the wall, you're stood next to that bit of timber, you've got no way of knowing which it is. So if you can see daylight between whatever it is, whether it's a bit of timber, bit of brickwork, bit of corrugated sheet, whatever it is, if you can see daylight between it and the string, you know it's not affecting the string. But if it's touching the string, or if you can't see daylight, there's no way of knowing. It might not be affecting the string at all. It might be affecting the string a lot. So, yeah, just a general rule for string lines. So here we are. We're just setting that bottom purlin, getting them nice and straight. To that, we get them right, both ends. We can then chalk a line. We can then nail it in place, and then that gives us our reference for the rest of our purlins. We can just hook our tape on. As long as we got a 900 measurement, we know they're going to work out. Once that's all set, that's pretty much us for the week, or that's the last video that I've got. But we've got fascia going on, and really at this point it's just putting purlins on. That's all we're waiting on. So once the purlins are on, fascia's on, we are ready for a roof. So I think that's booked in for the following Wednesday. So we've got a couple of days up our sleeve, plenty of time to get an inspection done. Yeah, make sure everyone's happy. So we'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's a huge help to us and our reach. If you've got any questions, chuck them in the comments. Thank you.